Hey everybody, you're tuned into Unlikely Places Pop and Rock Radio podcast section, and I'm going to do an intro for you. I haven't done these in a while, and I think I should start getting back into doing these. Today's show, we have Vic Wayne of Star Collector. Star Collector is a band from Canada. I have all their albums on CD except Black Eyed Soul. We laugh about it. They ran out of press of that, so I got all the other ones. Definitely one of my top bands right now in the power pop scene. They're really good writers, really good songcraft, and Vic's the main man behind the soundcraft with a bunch of the other members as well. Listen closely, you might learn something new. So here we go. Let's get into it.
Hi, this is Terry Draper from Plateau.
I'm Brendan O'Hare. I used to be in Teenage Fan Club.
Hey, this is Tyler Green.
Owen Radford.
Josh Bradley.
Tino Troy from Praying Mantis.
Blandy Flowers.
I'm Frankie Siragusa, and you're tuning into Unlikely Places Pop and Rock Radio Show with Final Man Jeb.
Let's just have a chat down here.
You're listening to Mad Wasp Radio.
Hello, everybody. This is your host, Vinyl Man Jeb of Unlikely Places Pop and Rock Radio. And today I have with me Vic Wayne of Star Collector. Hey, Vic, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, Jeremy. How are you? Jeb?
Good. We're here for part 2, but part 1 will be lost media, non-existent. So, very excited to have you. Just pulling up the questions as I set up here.
No problem.
Everybody's going to be like, where's part 1? I need part 1. Maybe one day take some of the questions out of there or something for the radio show, maybe. All right. So we're going to start off right with the very first question I ask everybody. What got you into music?
What got me into music? Well, it's interesting, my parents weren't necessarily that musical. They played a lot of music in the house. My dad maybe, strummed a little mandolin. He had a nice old, like vintage Gibson mandolin, but he just played a tiny bit. And my mom didn't really play music, but they always liked music, and it was always seemed to be playing in the house. And when I was about 10, I decided I wanted to be a drummer, because I was a drummer before I was a front guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I started on drums when I was 10, and I dragged my little brother along. I wanted him to play guitar, but I think my parents said, no, you got to learn piano first. So my little brother learned piano, and then we started doing, what we tend to call imaginary or fake bands, which were just bands that we had concocted in our heads. They had members who played certain instruments, and we had all these song titles, but of course we couldn't write songs yet. So it was like all in its infancy, but we were really young. And then by the time we were in our mid-teens, we actually started forming bands. And by the time we were in kind of our mid to late teens, we actually formed our first, what we call our first real band, which was a band called The Mods, which funnily enough played mod music.
Ooh.
Which we still love to this day. It's still a huge part of my brother Adam and my own musical.
Yeah, and I noticed on demo model 256 or 256 there, you have the the interludes as the mods, which I thought was very, very cool off that album.
Thanks. If I could redo it, I probably would have made them a little shorter, but they don't actually. They're only on the CD version, funnily enough. So
really,
yeah, they're not. If you go to like our Bandcamp page.
Okay.
So.
Oh, very cool.
But anyhow, it was though that was a really great time. We grew up in a city called Edmonton, which is in the province next door to where I live now in BC. And there was a really vibrant alternative music scene happening there when we were kids or teens. And it produced some really cool bands that went on to other, levels of being well known and not. There's like a hardcore punk band that's sort of known all over the world called SNFU that came from that scene. There was another great power pop band that ended up, people think they're from Toronto, but they started in Edmonton, which is the Pursuit of Happiness.
Oh, wow.
There's an alt country band that kind of was doing alt country before the Wilcos of the world, called Junior Gone Wild, who are still together. So a lot of these, it was a real vibrant scene, and but it was a very small scene. So it was everybody knew everybody, and if one band broke up, suddenly a new band would form with two guys from this band, and one guy from that band, and that's kind of what happened. So in the mods, it was me on drums, my brother Adam on bass, and a fellow named Dave on guitar. And we were the Jam. In our heads, we were the Jam. We looked like the Jam. We covered the Jam. We loved every song. We poured over every song, every album. The Jam were like our heroes. And that was kind of what we got. Was our real musical. that real moment where we really, I think, realized that music is something we all wanted to do. So that was the first band, and then Dave went his separate way for a while, and Adam and I played in another band together. But then jump fast forward a few years to Star Collector. I had played in a band with Steve, my current guitar player, before Star Collector, and that band, when that band split up after 6 years of working really hard and did quite well up here in Canada, but well, quite well is relative, but for an independent band, quite well. So there was this little lull of time after that band split up, and out of the blue, I got a phone call from Dave, the guy from the Mods, who was living in a city not too far from here called Victoria, and he said, "So are you playing with anybody these days?" And I said, "Actually, for the first time in like 10 years, I'm not." And he said, "Well, how'd you feel about? I was thinking of moving to Vancouver. How'd you feel about writing some songs together again?" And I just thought, well, what do I have to lose? And I knew that he and I had a good writing. We were quite, synchronous in our writing together. And he came over to Vancouver, brought a drummer with him. Drummer stayed about a month, then took off and left. And Dave and I started writing songs, and we wrote the whole Demo Model 256 album in a very, very short time, and even wrote some other stuff. But just as we were finishing the recording, things kind of didn't work out between us, and I decided I really wanted to finish it. So by that point, we had our drummer Ringo, and had this album that was being mixed by a well-known guy named Garth Richardson, who's worked with like Catherine Wheel and some other really big bands like the Chili Peppers and stuff.
I was going to say, you mentioned the Chili Peppers when you mentioned, like, oh, wow.
Yeah, so he'd worked with some pretty big acts, and we just, by a very bizarre set of coincidences, met each other. And he had relocated to BC right around this time, and he heard what we were doing and he liked it. One thing led to another, and he ended up mixing the album. So I had a drummer, and I had this album I was really, really proud of, but I kind of needed more of a band. Even though Dave left, I still felt like I needed to see it through. And right around that time, Steve kind of came back in the picture, and here we are 25 years later.
And Star Collector is as prominent as always, right?
Well, I don't know. but,
right.
But we're definitely in a good place right now. Last year has been pretty exciting.
It's been really cool. I've been talking to people like, have you heard of Star Collector? Like, of course we have. And I'm like, And I was talking to a guy from Big Star Records, the owner Rex there, and I was just like, yeah, they're awesome, aren't they? And he was like, yeah. But does the name Star Collector, is it Monkees inspired? I think I remember asking that one, but I'm gonna ask it again here.
It is, in fact.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was the very first band that I liked when I was a kid that I remember loving. When I remember hearing Last Train to Clarksville and Steppin' Stone and I'm a Believer and all those amazing Monkee songs. Right when I was a real small guy, a wee one, and I still like them, even though a lot of people, there's times when they've come in and out of fashion, and but I just loved the songs and I loved the band, and it kind of was when Dave and I were starting this band, it was kind of like one of those artists that we grew up loving the Who and the Jam and the Dave Clark Five and the Beatles and the Stones and the Kinks and all that kind of stuff. And the Monkees were just kind of part of that. So we just thought Star Collector was kind of funny because it's actually a song about groupies, kind of like a nudge, nudge, wink, wink moment. But we also just liked the way it sounded. And if people said, oh, is that from the Monkees? We thought, well, that'll be pretty cool. We can actually reference.
And there you go. Yeah, we know our station did a 2-hour Monkee special with Rick Del Santo, and we had a really fun time just talking Monkees. So what was it like working across from Sloan during the recording and process of writing for Black Eyed Soul?
Well, I mean, we only, rubbed shoulders with him a handful of times while we were there. It's a big studio, and, it's not like we were both living there, although we did spend quite a few hours while we were there. But, they were doing their thing, we were doing ours. And I do remember quite vividly, actually, hearing them working on one of my favorite songs of theirs, If It Feels Good, Do It. They were working, that was the album Pretty Together they were working on while we were in there, and I do actually recall that. But met them briefly. They were one of my brothers went to school in Halifax, where they were originally from, and they kind of knew him a little bit. And we actually had played with them once eons ago, right when their first album was coming out. We did a show with them at a really cool club here in town called the Town Pump that doesn't exist anymore. But so there was a bunch of tie-ins there, and they had rehearsed at a rehearsal space that we used to rehearse at back in the late 90s and stuff. So but I can't really say that I know them at all. I'm still a fan as well. I like a lot of their stuff, and they're one of Canada's longest serving and best bands, and
especially in the power pop scene too. So
exactly, in the power pop scene. Yeah. And once in a while they get thrown in, we get mentioned with them in interviews or reviews and stuff, and it's quite flattering again, because they're a band that even though they're much more well known, it's still a flattering to be kind of mentioned in the same breath as a band like that. It's a band that we musically probably share a lot of similarities to, like even down to their lead guitar player Patrick. You can tell that he's a rock guy, and that some of the other guys soften his rock guy thing a little with their pop thing. Well, Steve in our band is a rock guy, and I think there's a little bit of that thing, that same kind of balance that maybe Patrick and some of the other guys in Sloan, weigh each other up and down with, or balance each other out with. I mean, is something that kind of happens with Steve and I as well. Is I grew up with the British pop thing, and he grew up with the kind of the American rock, not hard rock all the time. Might be more like Cheap Trick and
I got you, yeah,
vintage Aerosmith and that kind of thing. But he also grew up loving Eddie Van Halen, because he's a bit younger than I am too. And and he grew up in a small town where you wouldn't have heard like Echo and the Bunnymen as a thing.
I got you.
Where Adam and I were, where Adam and I grew up in the scene we were in a bigger city, bands like that were pretty much part of the fabric of our growing up. So anyhow, but Steve and I have got a really great relationship, and have for all these years, in that we both kind of, the things that he's really good at, maybe I'm not so good at, and vice versa. He's great with visuals. He does our artwork. He makes our videos. But he's also, a quieter kind of guy. And I'm, as you can see, more outgoing. And
I got
never afraid to chat. And I'm okay with the promo side of things. And
I know that feeling.
So,
but it works out really well, because if you had two guys doing promos and two guys ready to chat, it could be a great thing, but it also could be like a competition too, and you don't want that. A healthy competition is good.
And I can't play a lead to save my life, so it's not. He's like your quintessential lead guitar player. He can just pull leads.
Yeah, I'm more of a rhythm guy myself, so I fully understand.
Incredible, just like the stuff he does noodling around in a rehearsal is better than anything I could do after years of practice. But then, but also when it comes to, like, say, lyrics, that's like my thing for the most part. So anyway, we've got like a really good yin yang thing going, and we're friends. We get along really well, and we've been lucky to have really good musicians and good people in the band with us over the years. So our current situation, we've got a guy who's been with us for about 4 years now on drums, because Ringo, our old drummer that was with us for 21 years, had a kid, and decided they needed to move to somewhere a bit cheaper than Vancouver. So that was tough, because he played on the first 4 albums.
Oh, okay.
And he toured to Europe with us, and played at the Cavern with us, and toured to LA. I mean, like, he was the three of us, Stephen, Ringo, and I were kind of the essence of the band for over 20 years. But then when he had to go, Steve and I kind of went, okay, like, who's the one guy that we know that might fill, this gap perfectly? And this guy, Adrian, who had played in another band that we had done tons of gigs with and toured with, who had broken up a few years before, we just were like, oh, that's a guy. That's the guy. And then it turns out, we didn't even know this at the time, that over the last few years, he'd been really honing his engineering skills. So when COVID hit, we didn't have to sort of sit there on this like long wait. We had done our drum beds for game day, most of them just before the pandemic. And then we were able to do all these like overdubs, just,
sending files type thing, right?
Sending files, or just like Adrian and me at his house,
That's insane.
or what, it was like this.
It's really cool to see that. involvement. Like I have a home studio set up. That's how I do most of my tracks, and I'm learning every day. Like there at the beginning, my tracks are very sound like I recorded them on a phone, which is funny now because the phone recordings are pretty awesome. Like you don't have to worry about it sounding like crap, but it's better in studio, of course, with microphones,
Sure.
So then I started sitting down and I learned how to use Cakewalk and stuff, and I started getting good at engineering, and I still have my guys that I, send stuff to and all that. But it was just really fun that like I didn't have to, people started understanding what I was doing, thought I was crazy. Like, you don't go to a studio? Oh, when COVID hit, they're like, we see why. And it's like, yeah, I totally knew, of course. But no, it's something that it's nice to have that being able to still work and still progress further within a recording from home. It's kind of cool without having to spend the studio.
It was really a godsend because, if we didn't have that, I don't know what we would have done, but, as it turned out, I came to realize fairly quickly that Steve also has a setup at home where he can do some demo work and he can send files, and our bass player. So we switched bass players during the beginning of the recording for Game Day. We'd had a fellow with us for about 9 years, and during the Game Day sessions, we switched back to my brother. So again, full circle to people that I grew up with that came back in, and my brother lives in Portland, Oregon. But again, because of file sharing, it wasn't difficult, and especially because it wasn't like playing live wasn't even part of the equation for better part of 2 years. It didn't even matter. It was like, okay, so Adam will send some files, he'll play some bass lines and vocal stuff, and he'll send us files.
There you go.
We'll do some stuff at Adrian's house, and Steve will send the odd thing, and we were able to make it happen. And we used the videos as a way to sort of supplant the live music thing, and luckily, again, Steve has a good eye for that whole sort of technical and artwork thing. And we put together a bunch of videos that helped sort of, elongate the promotion for the album. Which
I really enjoyed watching some of the videos that you sent me back when they were first coming out, even before we had Game Day on our RoboJack Sandwich Shop Jams compilation. It was really cool to see the video for that, and the video for Green Eyes was very awesome as well. I remember you sent that to me right when the song came out, and I was like, these are really cool. And that's cool that it's somebody in the band too. That's really cool.
Yeah, we actually did 6 of them for the album.
Wow.
Green Eyes is the last one, and Game Day was the second one, but there was actually like 4 others. So feel free to jump onto YouTube.
I'll put a link down below.
Check out our Star
there you go.
Channel.
Guys, plug. Hey, no promotions. Not allowed here. We self-promote 24/7. I don't care what people say. Self-promotion's the best promotion. Because it's coming from the self.
Who else is going to do it for us if we don't, right?
Well, I mean, hey, I could help out. No, but I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, of course.
No, I got you. No, I'm just messing. No, the best. I always remember a story when I met Dennis Dunaway of Alice Cooper Band, the bass player.
Oh no, did you?
I have him. He signed my jacket. I'll have to send you a picture.
Bastard.
So I met Dennis Dunaway. Oh, you're gonna love this. I met Dennis Dunaway twice. I'll share the story here. What's what this podcast is casual. I don't feel like I'm taking over here, but anyway, I'll tell you the story because I think you'll enjoy this. But if it goes on too long, I will cut this out. But I think I'm gonna leave it in. So I met Dennis Dunaway at an Alice Cooper show. We were outside. I was talking to Ryan Roxy first, and then all of a sudden, this older gentleman walks out, and I'm like, that's Dennis Dunaway. So I went. Dennis was very polite, very awesome to talk to, and there was a festival I was going to the next day for the reliving of a New York bar called the Fore and Aft. And I'm friends with Rick Tedesco. He played on stage with Alice Cooper. He's the Hall of Fame guy that played on stage with them when they got inducted. And Rick Tedesco runs a store here in Connecticut. And so I go there once in a while to say hi. We're actually pretty close. I talked to him here and there. He was on my show too. And so it was just all coming together. And then all of a sudden at that show was Neil Smith, the drummer.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really, he was just signing some autographs, and it was really fun to talk to him. That was the first festival. Then they did a second one. And it was Dennis, Michael Bruce, and Neil Smith. And Michael
actually met Michael Bruce too.
Yeah, I have Michael Bruce's book signed, and I also have my jacket. I have a jean jacket that's signed by Dennis and Michael on my the pockets on the front of it. So I wear it out too. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid, but it's like I do. Some days I'm like I should just hang that up, preserve it.
Yeah, man. I read that Michael Bruce book. And
it's phenomenal.
I've actually mentioned in a bunch of the interviews before this one, like people will often ask me about, different other musical influences. And aside from the mod thing and the jam thing, which was a big part of it, the original Alice Cooper group would have been like the first inspiration for me that,
Oh,
that
they're
sort of
phenomenal.
took me away from pop music. It was
It's something
they were
different
kind of the
too,
first
without a
rock band.
doubt. But it
And
relates
I
to that
love
self
Michael
promotion.
Bruce's songs.
Oh, Michael, his album too, with the cover with like the red and the guitar string type thing. Forget what album that is. Rock and Roll something, I think. Good album.
Yeah,
But it's
I
one of
can't
his
remember,
solo
but
releases. Phenomenal.
yeah,
I love it.
I've only heard one of his solo releases, but in terms of the
Yeah.
stuff he wrote with the Alice Cooper
Oh,
group,
yeah.
I always
Oh,
felt
yeah.
that he didn't get enough props. So
And
I'm
Steven
really,
Dennis's
I'm
stuff like
jealous
Black
that you guys
Juju,
talked
it was
about-
awesome too.
Yeah, Black Juju, man. I used to make out with girls in the basement to put that on.
Hell yeah.
It's
But it was
one of those
funny.
long enough that you could put the needle on the vinyl, and then you got
You don't have
like
to worry
9
about
minutes
flipping it.
of,
Yeah, you don't have to worry about flipping it.
you got
But
9 minutes.
it was funny because I wore my band's t-shirt, which is funny that we are talking on this day because on Sunday they moved to Massachusetts, so they're only a state away, but we haven't played in like a half a year together. And the last gig we did was like we knew it was going to be our last. Well, I'm booking a show, and I said to the guys, "Are you guys down to like come up once a month?" And they're like, "Yes, please book the gig for us." So we did. We have a big gig coming up. It's the first RoboJack Fest, so we're doing it. We're the closer. And what's really exciting about it is that when I was wearing that shirt, the Sane Riot shirt, I said to Dennis, "Oh, I should have wore a Zappa shirt." He goes, "No." He goes, "You got to promote yourself. Nobody else is going to do it." And he meant that in like the nicest way. And it was
There you
like, that's
go.
why I was like, that was funny to me. That's why I brought up the story. Because it was like,
it's a great story. Well, I can't say that I've met any of them, which would be like a real moment for me. But we did meet the Jam.
ooh, Paul Weller.
Yeah, and all of them. It was on their very last North American date before they broke up. They played in Vancouver, and our mod band flew from Edmonton to Vancouver, booked a hotel. None of us were old enough to even book a hotel, but we somehow were able to figure it in. Snuck some of the guys in, like with one of our roadies, and and we went to the show, and they let us into the sound check, and we got a bunch of autographs, and they let us in after the show to talk to them in their dressing room. And I was, in fact, on our video, we were talking about videos, on our video for the silent type, I'm actually wearing my Jam t-shirt that's autographed by all the bands, so you can check that out.
I'll have to definitely look at that. Well, one of our family record RoboJack, the little group that we have, the private group for all of us. One of the members is Edward Rogers. Edward's worked with Paul a little bit too. So that's how cool. I know a little bit about the Jam because Edward, when I interviewed Edward on our old show, Jeb and Greencast, which, hey guys, fans of the Jeb and Greencast, cool news. We're going to be bringing those shows over here. We're going to reissue some of the bigger ones like Paul Chastain and stuff. Like people that we interviewed were like, wow, they belong on this channel, So, but it was one of the biggest ones that we did recently before the big name switch was Edward Rogers. And it was just so much fun to talk with him. And then he brought up the Jam. And I really didn't know them. So then I started like getting into them and I bought a CD and I'm like, oh my God, they're phenomenal. Like,
yeah,
I overused the word there, but it's true. They are something special.
You're not overusing
I hope
it in this
not.
context,
Not that case.
Yeah,
I love them.
Group in the Jam, you're allowed to use phenomenal on those
awesome
two with me.
Well, it's like I used to use the word awesome way too much in an interview, but it's just like, what else do you say when things are so amazing that there's like no words? You're like, I'm just gonna mumble awesome or phenomenal.
Yeah.
I don't usually call people geniuses in music. I usually keep that to Frank Zappa and stuff like that. But there's albums that I hear and I don't overuse it, and I'm like, yeah, no, this person's a genius. So it's like, there's just certain things. Oh yeah,
Weller's definitely one of my all-time favorites.
Oh, he's amazing, and it's just something I've gotten so excited about learning about them, and it's fun that like I'm a big music buff myself, but mostly like older rock, and I'm young, so I have enough time to really explore a lot, which is awesome. And it's just been lately like finding all these newer bands that have the older sound is what I'm a sucker for, because it's something that they're carrying what I love and that I respect, but they're newer, and I could follow their career right from the beginning. Or come in where they're only like 4 or 5 albums in, and I can enjoy it.
4 or 5 albums in,
and then they start popping like 8 or 9.
A lot of bands never get to 4 or 5 albums.
Not even one album. It's all singles and EPs nowadays, or not even that. It's just one single. Lately I've been like digging this Atlanta, Georgia band, Ugly Smile, and I play them on the show all the time. And they do long songs, like 8 minutes. The albums are long. I'm like, Are you guys signed or self-releasing? I know you have like a record label name, but I believe we talked about that. But I'd love for you to share it here. Is that your own label?
It's our own. It's our own
Very
label. Cool. Steve and I started back. I think the first album we did in our pre-Star Collector band was on a small indie label, and then our next album after that we put out on our own label, and we called it Clockwise. and we've just since released them on that ever since. So I guess you know, that album plus the 5 Star Collector albums are kind of like the only releases on it. But yeah, we're pretty
major respect
that way. Yeah,
well, that's what RoboJack was for the longest time.
You know, we toyed around with the idea of looking at some other labels, but we just found that for the most part we were able to do kind of what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it.
Yeah, and if you don't need the extra help and you're doing it yourself, there's no reason to, you know. There's no, if you're making it work, you know.
I got lots of respect for you know, there's some really cool labels out there, like you mentioned, Big Stir and Future Man and Red on Red.
Oh, those are all great. Those are all,
and, you know, full props to all of them. I just, at this point for us, I just think, like, you know, between the people in the band, we kind of have a lot of those arms covered. And yeah, I mean, there's something to be said that probably people that they could reach that we don't, but yeah, as we're going along right now, we'll see. You know, never say never, but we're pretty happy with the way things
logically. And if you could do everything on your own, it's great. And you guys I've seen you guys on so many stations, and it's like, oh, you guys are awesome. You have all the, you know, what you're doing, and you have those connections. And I think the radio hosts that we have so much support from all of us. I think because we've definitely been on some of the same stations on the airwaves and knowing these hosts, and it's just
for sure.
These indie radio stations host, you know, Radio Indie Alliance, Mark Platt, shout out. Mark is awesome. It's exciting when your own stuff charts, and I'm sure you felt it too when Star Collector is charted, and you're like, oh, this is amazing. It's so great to see the power of, like, people that we know charting as well, and it's like,
Yeah, no, it's a great scene that until we put Game Day out, you know, it had been quite a few years since our previous record, 100 Bulletproof, so a lot changed in that time. So
and the sound for you guys changed in a small direction. You know, I've noticed. Hope you enjoy the podcast. We're gonna get into the song section. Every time I mention the song, I want to play the song first, and then we'll let Vic talk after the song plays. So hopefully you enjoy it. I haven't done this in a while for the podcast. Usually just do this for the radio show. We're gonna step things up here at Unlikely Places Pop and Rock Radio Podcasts. All right, let's get right back to the show, and we'll get into the songs now. Too. So we'll get right into it. So we're gonna start off with Game Day. So.
It's game day and I've gotta be strong. Game day, splayed out on the lawn. It's May Day and the siren song. Now there ain't no losing at all. It's game day for the young and strong. Game day, played out on the lawn. It's the same way that you knew all along. You never knew me at all. No, you never knew me at all. You never knew me at all. Now there ain't no losing at all.
So what was that song about? Tell us a little story behind it and some of the processes behind it, and then we'll do that for each of the songs. But let's talk about Game Day.
Sure. Well, Game Day is first song and the name of the album for a reason. The first 2/3 of the album are I often say they're like a song cycle. I suppose in the old days they might have said it was sort of a concept album, but some very serious stuff went on in my life and my family's life a few years ago, and you know, we had, when the band got back to sort of playing gigs, we weren't really writing. I wasn't really doing much writing for a few years. We were just playing gigs and having fun. And when this stuff came down, it kind of immediately, you know, there was a certain catharsis for me about writing about it. And, you know, it is a power pop album. There's no question, you know, and maybe, you know, we tend towards the rockier side of power pop, you know, the Who and the Jam side of it, more so than, you know, the more poppy kind of stuff. but the songs are pretty fucking serious. You know, with the possible exception of Cayenne and Caramel, which isn't part of the cycle, pretty much everything on the album's got a pretty serious note to it. And the song cycle that Game Day starts, and that is definitely part of it. And it's really a song about the weight of expectation, I suppose, if you want to encapsulate it. It's about, you know, it's about mental health. It's about some of the darker things that can go along with that. You know, it's one of those things where there's a phrase which is, it's not my story to tell. And I have to always walk I get asked about this a lot. And it's a really hard tightrope to walk, to not seem evasive, but to also not give up any sort of specifics or, you know, confidential kind of information. So the best I can do is to say that it's some pretty heavy stuff that we went through, but it's really, that song is about the weight of expectation, and it's actually from two voices. One of the voices is the voice of the narrator, and the other voice that happens a little later is me. And there's one section in there that kind of probably, you know, would give away the weight of the emotion of the song, which is, there's a breakdown at the end where I sing, it's game day and I've got to be strong. Game day, splayed out on the lawn. It's May Day and the siren song. Now there ain't no losing at all. And that's really how I was feeling. And that part's from my perspective, and the rest of the song is actually from the perspective of the narrator of it. So it's a little deeper than your average power pop. It's not a lot of, I don't write a lot of boy girl, love you, love me kind of stuff. And I have no problem with people that do. There's, you know, live and let live is always my thing when it comes to music. I love a lot of pop songs that are just straight up pop songs. I just don't find that I write them too often. I don't know. I've got a background in English and all that stuff, and I like them. And I've always loved Paul Weller and John Lennon and Pete Townsend and the way they approach lyrics.
Yeah, especially the storytelling and everything. It's like,
yeah, and exploring.
There's a character, yeah.
Or exploring the darker side of human nature. It's not always just about, you know, or I mentioned Echo and the Bunnymen or Julian Cope. Like, there's a lot of artists that I, you know, that tend towards that side of sort of introspection, and for some reason that's my comfort zone. even though a lot of the songs aren't terribly comfortable, be probably a lot more comfortable to write the boy girl songs, but that's where I like to reside when it comes
And I have
to theme.
major respect for folks that are making it happen like that, like for you guys, like especially for your writing. I really, really, really admire it. And that's from you. When we first talked, it was like I didn't really have all the songs. Then when we talked, you're like, here, I'm gonna send you these two, and then I'll get the rest for you. And I started really listening, because at least with Bandcamp you can just stream it, and I was like, wow, there's some really powerhouse lyrics here hidden beneath those like themes like you're mentioning. And it's just something that I'm very heavily inspired by, being bands like the Pretty Things, the Who, stuff like that. And that's why I sent you the Pretty Things. I was like, you got to hear at least a couple songs.
Yeah, you know what? I actually listened to the first 4 or 5 songs of that when I was driving the other day, and I loved it. It was really cool.
Parachute might be more up your alley as well, with like loving the jam type, because it's more 70s sounding.
Sure.
And I know the jam is more leans towards that sound. But all their albums, there's the ones that Wally and John are on, who I've interviewed before, so a nice little plug there. But they're on the earlier stuff, and SF Sorrow and Parachute are my top 2 favorites. And SF Sorrow is something I used to. She Says Good Morning. There's a clip online with David Gilmour playing with them, doing that song. I'll send it to you if I remember. Because that's a really fun one. And I asked Wally about it, and he brought up like, yeah, I knew Gilmour since he was a little kid. I'm like, oh shit. Like that's, you just think, just, and probably Gilmour looked up to him, Yeah, so it's really cool to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. But yeah, so that's kind of where that goes. And the thing that I find with music is, to be honest and to be fair, I know that most people don't actually put as much stake in lyrics that maybe you do or I do, and that's fine.
It's whatever works.
That's the other aim of the band, is to actually write music that people want to listen to musically. Because I was reading something, someone had done a post the other day, which I thought was true. They said, like, would you listen to a song that you thought had great lyrics but the music you didn't like very much, or would you listen to a song that you really liked the music but you didn't care for the lyrics? And almost everybody chose the latter.
Yeah.
So it really, for listeners, it's really about the music and the melody, and the lyrics might be an extra little, cherry on top, but I'm aware of that, and that's fine.
And that's what I struggle with that too. Like, it's something, because I write very heavy lyrics. I take songs, like I'll do a vent sesh, because like, I talked to you the other day. I've had a reason why we didn't talk yesterday is I had a really wicked it was a crash. It was one of those, it happens once a month for me because I work so hard and don't know how to take breaks. So it just happens all at once. And then finally my body's like, you need to take a break, so you're going to go into depression mode. And it's terrible, but I write my best songs in that mode. And one of my songs, Isolated Do, it's very lyrical heavy, but there's references to Klaatu and the Posies and all that. But the thing is, the song itself is it's 4 chords with a little bit of a bridge in there, but the melody works so well. But the thing is, it's so lyric heavy, but it made radio and it worked. So that was like, but there's no formula to making radio. It's just whatever you just got to do what you do and then make it happen. But I've noticed that's a good pull. That's a really good pull to ask people, because I know that too. So like my next album is going to be a little more, less lyric-y, but still hidden themes. Like I recently wrote a song that was flat out, I wanted to write something that was right on nose to how I was feeling. It just, drops names and stuff, but I'm never going to release it. What I'm going to do is take those lyrics, drop back, and make it as vague as possible. But the motions and the feeling are there, so people are going to feel it. It
really just, it's finding that balance.
It's a craft. It's like a puzzle.
It's like finding the balance between making music that people like the musical side of, and then hopefully they might jump on board the lyrical train too. And if they don't, we've had reviews on Game Day where people have missed the dark side of it altogether, and yet still really liked it because they just sort of enjoyed the music, or they enjoyed the guitar playing, or they enjoyed the melodies.
Yeah, it's the classic seeing the same film, but two people walk out of a film with two different two different imaginations, or different expectations. There you go.
But it's totally fine. Like I got no problem with that. I just so anyway, that's Game Day.
Yeah, a great song for night. That's like the first song I heard from you was Super Zero Blues, which we're coming up to after the next one here. And I'll go right into the next one. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Is that basically the way that we write songs for the most part, other than the first album, is either I write them or I write them with Steve. And a lot of pretty much the song cycle that I referred to before was all stuff that I wrote, except for Game Day, which Steve and I wrote together. And we actually wrote it together very quickly. and it was we were doing a tour, and we were in Seattle, short tour, and we were staying at a friend's house, and we had some time in the afternoon before the show, and I had the chorus of Game Day, and Steve had one of the riffs for it. I can't remember which one, the verse riff, I think. And he had sent me a bunch of music, and I heard the verse riff, and I thought, oh, that might work with my chorus. We just got to sit down and do it. So we just kind of sat there knee to knee, like the old Lennon and McCartney thing on her couch, and just hacked through it. And literally within like 2 hours, we had 95% of the song.
Oh, wow.
So it was pretty cool. So that's the other thing, is that the other ones I wrote quite a bit in isolation, but that one was a real co-write with Steve. And I like that song an awful lot. So, it's definitely a personal,
and it shows.
Personally to me, emotionally, but also I really just like the song,
and that's why it fits as the album name too. I'm thinking, as well as a music fan listener, it's showing that's the one that is the title, of the album too, which is perfect. And I picked another one from that album, and then you picked one after that. So we'll go with the one I picked first, because why not? One that we talked in the first part that we did here that doesn't exist. We talked about Green Eyes.
Young child with dreams, an instamatic, a diamond melody in quadraphonic. Your imaginary friend, we didn't get it. Now I got it. Cause it was there in your green eyes, like rabbit holes in the night sky.
really liked the story behind and the mentioning of recording it the first date, with it being that it was your dad's birthday. And I think I would love to go into that story again with you. So Green Eyes, tell me about that one.
Yeah, so when we did put the Invisible Part 1, it just happened to be on the day that would have been my dad's birthday. Well, it was my dad's birthday, but he passed away. It'll be 20 years this fall, and that was actually would have been his birthday when you and I were talking. So it was quite appropriate when you asked me about Green Eyes, because Green Eyes isn't part of that song cycle. It's just kind of a song unto itself, and it's a song that I wrote about my dad. He was a really sweet, warm, caring, generous, sometimes silly. He loved Monty Python. He was a doctor, and he just died way too young. Just had a heart attack one day and passed away. And so I have 3 siblings. One of them is Adam, who plays with us and lives in Portland and had his own musical thing for years too. And then my other brother and sister live down in California, and we're all really, really close. And my mom lives close to me here. And I kind of wrote Green Eyes not only as a tribute to my dad, because he had green eyes and I have green eyes, but also it was also a song kind of written from my siblings' standpoint about him. So it has a bunch of sort of references that maybe only they would get, but somehow it hasn't seemed to bother people. People seem to like that song and like the emotion behind it, even if they don't get all the references. But yeah, and then when we were doing his burial, it was one of those cosmic trippy moments. We were standing around the grave and everything was very solemn, and it's in a wooded area in West Vancouver. And out of the woods, a coyote came out and just stood there and watched us for quite some time. And we all were just looking at it, and my dad had sort of one of those, beard and, thing. And it was somehow this coyote just, we were kind of looking at each other like, geez, is that Dad?
Yeah, it
watching
could.
us?
I believe that.
It
Wow.
had that feeling to it. Not to get too ethereal or cosmic or spiritual about it.
I understand that.
But it did have that feeling, and we were all just like, whoa. So there's a line in the song too, which talks about coyotes turning and sighing. And but yeah, that's. I'll be honest with you. That's one of the other ones. That's the other one. One of the other ones on the album that Steve and I wrote together. And I'll be honest with you on that one. I didn't see that one coming as being as popular as people like. That one gets picked a lot gets played a lot on shows. And
yeah, we've played it here at Unlikely Places too, and I think it's the ones that you don't expect to be played are the ones that get played. I think that's what it is. I think that's the secret. Well, I don't know if there is a secret.
Well,
but
I don't know. If
I love the song. Yeah, I love the song.
I like to think I have a reasonably good handle on stuff. I mean, Rip It Off is the single, and Game was the second, and I think those are, in my mind, those are the two single type songs. I really like Super Zero Blues and Silent Type as well, but. I mean, obviously the whole album means something to me, and Green Eyes certainly did mean enough to want to get it on the record. But I just didn't expect that people would like it as much as they did. That's probably why it's buried as, far into side 2. But yet, like you said, you just never know. And they're all your songs when you're a songwriter, they're all your babies, and they all mean something to you in one way or another. So, it's kind of like some of the choices you made from our older albums. I was like, really? Wow, that one, huh? But I try not to be too influential. There was another show
let them think it through. Yeah,
the song that the guy picked from Demo Model would have been the last song that I would have picked out of 12 songs, in my opinion. But it's like, hey, that's cool. That's just the one he likes, so let's do it.
Yeah, and my song of the week next week is All or Nothing, or Half of Nothing. Sorry, Half of Nothing. Love that song.
That one I do like an awful lot. But that's although it still wouldn't have probably been in my top 2 or 3 on the album. But that's the beauty of music, right?
Everyone it is. It's another language. It's above all. It's a way of communication that we as humans still don't fully understand, but yet we can grasp it.
And the one
really
thing
cool.
about Green Eyes too that fits with that is that there is a really true emotion that comes out in that song, which I don't think I quite twigged to until a bit later. And I think that's also partially why people like that song, is that they can feel the love in that song and the bit of mourning as well. So, but anyhow, that's Green Eyes.
And that's what draws me to music. Bands like the Posies, used to be, and John Hour and stuff like that, his solo stuff. It just seems to me, having raw emotions, it changes how you feel with music. And you can make the raw emotions work as much as you guys did, and much as you explained, like making it kind of work with the song and not making the song just all about the emotions, but it still is all about the emotions in a sense. And it's very unique, and it's also makes your music you, because there's still people that could sound like you, like everybody could sound like each other because guitar parts and all that, but nobody could actually be you, because not everybody lives the same exact story. And I think that's what's really amazing about music.
That's very well put.
Well, thank you.
Well put.
I thought about that for like 10 seconds.
No, you absolutely nailed it.
Yeah.
Nobody's lived the life that you've lived, or no one's lived life.
Even
that
if you
I've
had
lived,
similar and I'm young, and I'm still living, and I'm still
Mm-hmm.
learning. At 22, I've done such amazing things, and I don't mean to like be like, this is me and this is, but it's something that I never.
Now you're just bragging.
No,
that you're 22.
This is the point. I'm just taking.
Now you're
over.
just bragging that you're 22.
Yeah, I'm 22.
You kids, get off of my lawn.
I have the power of the internet on my end. I don't know. But I'm such an old soul too. Like, I feel like I'm a lot older. People thought because I had to like shave. If I shave, like, people are like, oh my God, I see that you're like 22 now. But if I don't, like, all my profile pics are like, how's it like being 30? I'm like, I'm not, but okay, it's great. But
well, a lot of people your age don't really listen to this kind of music too.
No,
so that's probably
and I've just gotten.
a surprise
That's what
too.
it is. Yeah, I mean, again, having knowing Badfinger, knowing all these other like older names that people are like, huh? It's right. Like, really?
Right.
I struggled in high school, I'll tell you that, because like, but that's another story for another time. Moving into the song that you picked.
Okay.
I like this one a lot. This is how I met you through this song, because we were on the same comp that the Ice Cream Man put on.
Right.
Not the Ice Cream Man down the street, kids. This is the Ice Cream Man, Wayne Ford here. Wayne, I can't say his middle name. I'm
Lundqvist.
Lundqvist. All right.
Lundqvist.
Yeah. He is one of my favorite radio hosts, alongside Conrad Callan and Jim Prell and many others that I really enjoy being on their shows. But getting put on a comp for the first time made me so excited. That's why we did the Robojack one, because it was like, it's a good feeling. It's a great feeling. Mm-hmm. Getting put on with some really like-minded songs. And you get to see what the radio host likes too, because he has a very eclectic taste amongst the power pop and pop and rock. And Super Zero Blues.
Something on you, you got something on me. We're both in so deep, I can't quite believe that what props you up can't take you down, that what shows you love can't steal your crown. They got nothing on you, they got nothing on me. When every feeling's a friend, it's so hard to see that what builds you up can't tear you down, that what colors you drags you around. They're invincible. We're invisible. And one of us is born to lose. sinking deep, but I still believe. We're not invincible. We're not invincible. And maybe we're all born to lose. Those super zero. Super zero.
Tell me about that one.
So that's one of the songs that is part of that song cycle, and it's definitely one of the it's one that sounds a bit darker too. Even though maybe songs like Game Day or Rip It Off are a little more up tempo, Super Zero Blues has a more kind of a mid tempo feeling, and the song is based on the bass guitar more so than anything else. So it's played deep and heavy and dark. And the band did a phenomenal job. I got to say, I was really, really impressed with, some of the stuff that Steve did, and Adrian just played it out just brilliantly at the end. And I had to convince him to play the ending the way it is, because he's like, oh man, it's like a drum solo. I don't think I want to do a drum solo. I'm like, this song needs the chaos. So we got to do it. We got to do it. And in the end, I think he was happy he did it. But that song is also, like I said, it's part of it. And that one, is more about the shared experience of going through hell. That sometimes people get into different types of groups, where they form bonds with other people that know their pain and the dark stuff that they've had to go through. And there's something really deep about that, about understanding something at the same level that someone else goes through. Like you've mentioned to me before that you struggle with mental health sometimes. Well, nobody's going to understand you better than someone else that's actually had to go through that hell.
And I agree full on with that. Yeah, like definitely. So it's interesting how you could connect with people through that.
That's kind of what Super Zero Blues is about. It's about the connection with another person or people who understand that level of darkness. And so again, without giving away too much, but that's really what it is. It's about and it's about looking at the people in the situation, not necessarily the people you share it with, but the other people involved, that and trying to navigate how to get through the next day.
Well, that's a clever title. Now that I hear the story behind it, it's like, wow, what a really, because titles are hard for me. in songwriting.
Well, it's a play on
So
superhero.
it is definitely a superhero, and then the blues is a play on music and also the play on feeling down.
Right.
And I really like that. Oh, that's very clever.
No, thank you.
Yeah, for me, it's hard to come up with song titles with our songs. Usually what I do is, like, because I'm a free verser, so like a lot of times I'm just like whatever words spew out, and then I'm like, all right, that sounded like a cool phrase, that's gonna be the title. But it's really fun when you could sit down and actually creatively like mess with the titles and stuff, and I love seeing that with your music, and especially Super Zero Blues. I love that. Now actually hearing the story.
That one is definitely one that I'm really, really happy with the way that it turned out emotionally, but also performance-wise too. It really does. Sometimes you record stuff and you're going, I wish we had, or if we had only. And when I listen to that one, I don't have that feeling. I feel like all the guys really just nailed it.
It's a great feeling to have too within music, because it's sometimes it's really hard to find that, I don't know, that perfect mix, because sometimes you're like, I wish there was this, or I don't have the ability for this, so the song's never reached the full potential because I don't have this. To have that like inner peace feeling with the song is beyond, like, it's like kind of nirvana in a sense.
It really is. And I'm, like I said earlier, I'm really blessed with having really great musicians, because I'm not a great musician. I mean, I put my time into songwriting, and I'm just, thrilled that I have other people that are so competent and so in tune with the kind of songs that I come up with, or that Steve and I come up with, that they can actually bring to life, and often even better than I have got in my head. I've got a pretty good idea in my head how I'd like it to sound in the end, which is why I end up producing the stuff too. But there's always surprises where Steve comes up with some guitar bit that I'm like, I never would have thought of that in a million years.
And it sounds really good. I know
it's
that
just
feeling.
Like, holy crap, man! Just lay it down. It's so good, So that one, yeah. And the thing about that one too is that you mentioned earlier about having an 8-minute song, and that song sits at about 6 1/4, I think. And in the power pop realm, especially where we tend to reside, maybe even more so than your stuff. It's not very typical that you're going to have songs that get more than 4.5 minutes. Like, in general, that's kind of the limit. So when you have something that's 6 1/4, you could easily see why someone might shy away from it. But that song.
Well, that's what I liked about Badfinger. They had like 2-3 minute songs on the albums, but their live stuff's like, they took Suitcase, a 3 to 4 minute song on Straight Up, and made it into this like 12-minute jam live. And that's just something that, like, power pop, and they're power pop to the max. I mean, they're one of the definitive bands, and I relate to that in a sense, because people seem to shy away from the 6 minutes. I'm over here like, give me more. Because I'm an alternative kind of guy.
This is how I feel about it, Jeremy. This is how I feel about it when I'm listening to other people's music, not just our own. If it keeps me interested and involved, I don't give a shit how long
exactly
it is. I love a good 2-minute straight to the point pop song, and I can easily listen to a 6 or 7 minute song if it holds my attention. And and I'm not claiming that Super Zero Blues or some of our other stuff is going to do that for someone else, but in my mind, it's pretty fully realized in the way it is exactly as it should be at 6 minutes and 14 seconds or whatever the hell it is. So if people get bored of it, fair enough. But to me, it actually hits the nail on the head the way that I.
And it doesn't feel, some songs feel like the actual length that they are. There's some songs that drag on. You're like, when is this over? I mean, I can hit the skip button, but when is it over? Type thing. Then there's other songs, including Super Zero Blues, that you don't even realize the time just passed, because you're so involved in the universe that the song is creating. I mean, in my mind, I visualize things very easily, like a 3D scape. And when I hear certain songs that just hit, I have to close my eyes and like throw headphones on. That's just how I am. And I get into this like realm of, it's not like a visual thing, but it feels like it's another planet, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of out there, spacey talk here, but it feels like you're in your own sound room, and you're able to kind of visualize parts. I see colors with sounds. Like, that's how I've been that way since like I was in band class when I was younger. And like they brought it up as like an actual thing. Like you could see colors within notes. Yeah. I can actually.
There's a name for that. I can't remember what it is. But
I know. I'm trying to think about
one art to another or thing. But yeah.
I can't draw I can't paint, but it's just like I can see colors. It's hilarious. But I can, in my mind, I can bend sounds. And now I found out how to use reverb, and I've like now in heaven, because reverb, if not overused can be used as a placer in that 3D realm. And it's so much fun. And I mean, I just recorded a song today, and I was like messing around with the 3D realm effect of like, all right, I'm gonna put the vocals at 0, but the wet down to like, you know, -0.4, move the backing vocals to -2, you know, keep moving back until like all the places are in part. And then it's like I had an electric guitar solo that usually guitar solos are in the front, but I'm going for the pretty things effect of having that electric leads in the back and the acoustic in the front with slide and stuff. And I was just like, I always mess around with instruments too. I'm a kind of a Zappa freak with that kind of stuff. Like I took my old class ring. Kids don't do this at home. I took my old class ring and used that as a slide because it had a unique sound that slides don't have, because I'm using a ring, not a slide. And it just came out with this, and I only did it, you know, I don't overdo it. It's just layered in the background. I'll send you this after we're done today. I'll send you the little MP3 demo. It's not anywhere near done, but I still have to do the automation stuff where you level out the sounds and everything, but learning as I go. But it's just like something to hear from other folks, and especially I think connecting with you is very important in my musical journey as well. Because I found somebody that I can relate to. I don't find that very often. Usually I'm talking to somebody who's a really wicked good guitarist, or I found somebody that I could talk to like about songwriting, because that's what I do. I don't see myself as a great guitarist. I'm a great frontman because I put on a show, but I'm also not the greatest singer, but I'm a great frontman that puts on a good show and a very good writer. And I don't mean to talk highly of myself. I see that that's my talent. And it's nice to hear from somebody else that feels like that about themselves and says, you know, I'm not, you know, but it matters to the whole band, the whole picture. And it is a great chemistry feeling when the band works with you and surprises you immensely. And I love hearing that.
Yeah, you know, there's a certain thing that comes with playing together for a long time. There's a certain trust and a certain comfort level that comes where people can be more open about things that doesn't usually exist when people start playing together. It takes a while to build it. And Steve and I have played together for so long that there's a lot of just intuitive things, but we're also at a point where, you know, we can actually say to each other, yeah, that's just not working. Or, you know, I think
there's no offense taken. It's just natural part of the progress. Because I learned that hard growing up, that sometimes when somebody says, hey, that's not working, they're not trying to disrespect you. They're saying like, we got to try something different. And it's a learning process. And especially if, you know, there's two, should I say the word band dicks in the band, sometimes there's a lot of a lot of butting of heads, but sometimes you could actually make some really beautiful music that way because you got two powerhouses, you know. But it's just like in different stories, sometimes it works for those people, you know, and in some other stories, it's like the one guy leads and everybody follows, but they're okay with it. So the band works out that way. And it's so unique to see, like, you know, a powerhouse band where all 4 members are all, you know, on, I don't know if I've ever seen that, but I'm waiting for that day, the golden band where all 4 members are full on in their own direction, their own way, and somehow they make it work.
Well, Sloan actually is I
gotta really get into them because I feel like I know about them, but I don't know enough. The Sloan podcast, I think, follows us. And they're pretty cool.
They're all writers. They're all singers.
That's awesome. Well, Teenage Fan Club was like that too. Actually, never mind. Teenage Fan Club is like that goldenish kind of. I believe all of them did, but not all of them were like as much of a powerhouse. I know in the early stuff, we interviewed Brendan O'Hare, and he explained a little bit on that himself. They all kind of took turns. But it was like, I don't think like Sloan, I know Sloan is a powerhouse. I know for a fact, from what I've heard.
All I'm saying is that they all sing and they all write. And they treat it as a democracy, even though, you know, I have opinions as to which guys are stronger writers and stronger singers. But they treat it as a democracy. That's cool. It does seem, and it's worked for them for 30 years.
There we go. Then there's the golden, I'm going to have to study them because I like
there
that.
You go.
Yeah, it gives me a band to study over the next coming. Hey, when I'm bored, I'll just be like, all right, now I know what I need to do.
That's right. So I'm going to finish on Super Zero.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm totally.
That's okay. What I was going to say too that I do want to point out is that we were talking about videos, and that's another one that we did a video for, and I thought Steve did an amazing job on that one too. We you know, I kind of came up with some of the settings, and you know, and he scouted out some other settings too, but it was all based around the phrase, which kind of ties into the lyrical theme we talked about before, which is lost in the wilderness. And I really wanted it to have this feeling of desolation and lost in the wilderness and sort of that black and white kind of grainy feel. And Steve did a great job. So yeah, I don't know if you've seen that video either too, but they're all on YouTube thing.
I'll be checking them out, and I'll
anyway.
link them down below for everybody that's listening to this podcast. Once it's on YouTube, you'll be easily just down in the description when we put it out on YouTube. But on Anchor, I think when you click on it, they put it in like a little box. But I don't know if anybody actually checks those. I know on when our podcast goes to Castbox and like Pocket Cast or whatever all these other names are, you can read the description right there. So I'll link all this stuff below for you guys.
Cool.
And throw it in there. And then
Sure.
I got the next one here,
Mhm.
which is
This
Song
one.
of the Week next Tuesday.
Nice.
Half of Nothing.
Everything you adore is not what she had in store, despite what she told you. And everything you abhor, distrust and ignore, is just the junk she sold you. So with every lie, your pie in the sky turns bitter you are finding. And when you question why, she's the first to deny the sun isn't shining. Now, though you see
What was that one about?
Okay, so now we're going way back in the time machine. Half of Nothing's from the very first Star Collector record, and that's one of the ones that I wrote and recorded with Dave. And Ringo is on it on drums.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, the keyboard player that played on a couple Game Day songs and played in Steve and my band pre-Star Collector plays organ on that song too, funnily enough, now that I think about it, Reese. But that was, so Half of Nothing is interesting to me for a few reasons, but one of them that comes to mind is that in the time between the pre-Star Collector band Dear God, before that, after that band ended and before Star Collector started, I went through the one time in my life where I was kind of having, I don't know, I'll call it writer's block, but it was as much that I just didn't feel motivated to write. And it was the first time I'd been without a band for like 10 years in my life. And it's often when, as a writer, at least for me, if I didn't have people to bring the song alive as an arrangement after writing it, it's harder to get the same motivation to write. Now, it wasn't that way with the Game Day songs because I had some life things that were going on that I had to write about. But during this period of time, I didn't actually write a ton of stuff. In fact, I wrote very little. I think I wrote one song and then a bit of music. And the bit of music is the verses for Half of Nothing. And when Dave and I started writing together, this is kind of like the Game Day story that I told you about me and Steve having pieces that fit together. I played the verses for Half of Nothing to Dave, and he said, "Oh, I've got a chorus that'll go with that." And he immediately played it, and it is exactly the music and melody of the chorus of that song. And then I just wrote the words to go along with the melody and the chord progression that he had for the chorus. So it was that was definitely one of those combined effort songs where it wouldn't exist if two people hadn't been part of the writing. It's the same way as Game Day with Steve. So
yeah.
So Half of Nothing was a real co-write with Dave, and he sings the harmony on it and plays the solo, and I play like acoustic and rhythm, and Ringo plays the drums, and this guy Rob, who was our first bass player on the first album, plays on it, and it's just one of those songs about it's kind of like a song on the dark side of the end of a relationship, which is pretty much what this title is.
Half of Nothing. I
think
Very
in the
creative.
bridge I use the line, when you've got half of nothing, when that's all there is, anything is something.
Ooh.
And I think that's really kind of what the gist of the song is, that when you're half of nothing, it's, means like there's no more relationship to be half of anymore. So and I quite like I've always liked the lyrics to that song, and I like the melody to it.
That's one of the ones
I
for
was
me
quite
that,
flattered. I was really glad that it jumped out at you. It's
something that hit me. I was
in
just
a minor key, and
it's something that hit me because it reminded me of early Posies. So of course I'm big into the sound there from Dear 23. That, and then a little bit of Frosting, like the sound wise. And it's just something that hit real hard because it reminded me of that stuff. There's always personal things that, songs could hit hard for personal reasons. And it's just really cool to hear that from folks. And I don't know what I was listening, like I had another song in mind for Song of the Week from that album. And I believe it
Slow
was,
Fade.
I think I mentioned
Probably
it to you as well.
Slow Fade.
Yeah, it was Slow Fade. That's right. And then because I remember I texted you immediately. I was like, "This is it. This is it." And then all of a sudden, like a couple minutes later, I think I was right into it again, and I was like, "No, it's Half of Nothing now." And just like something, a lot of your songs are hitting me.
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of your songs
Thanks.
are really hitting. And there's times like my dad and I are on the same music page. So there's certain bands like he doesn't like Sparks. So I have weird stuff that I like, of course, but there's certain things like when it comes to this genre, we're very much on the same page. It's like Matthew Sweet, stuff like that. And so anything that has that rock power pop vibe, we're in on it. So when I said I gotta show my dad this stuff, he was immediately stopped doing what he was doing and like just listened. And he was like, "This is amazing." And I was like, I'll be getting the CD soon for us. So, and it was just something that I just like, and Half of Nothing is something that called out to me. And then the next song I have on the list was my second one that called out from the next album up here, Black Eyed Soul here, New Devotion. Devotion. That's also going to be played next week as well.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
this one is that's on the second album, and so that's another one that Steve and I wrote together. And geez, what can I say about New Devotion? I don't think I've ever been asked about that.
Oh, there you
before.
go. I got one.
It's, yeah, and again, that it was a bit of a surprise to me, because if you would have asked me for, what are the first, 3 or 4 songs of this album you'd suggest, that probably wouldn't have been one of them. But that's what's so cool about music, is that's the one that hit you.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to me that these songs are getting a chance to get heard, because, so New Devotion is kind of about, it was written more of as a sort of a story, fictional idea of two young people that were in sync, and a couple when they were younger, and then just how they grew apart in different ways, like maybe it's spiritually or intellectually or sexually or whatever, but they both kind of just went in very opposite directions, to the point where they can't see eye to eye in any way anymore. They're just totally opposite ends of the spectrum kind of people, but when they look back to when they were younger, they were in full sync. So I guess it's kind of about, it's about growing up, and what happens sometimes to relationships is really what New Devotion's about.
I love that song too, because again, that was up there too, and and I see a difference in the sound between the first and second album too, as well. There's a different,
well, it's
not
a lot
drastically
of different,
but exactly. Well, I mean, now it makes sense. Yeah.
The first album was basically me, Dave, and Ringo, and this bass player Rob, and then the second album was me and Ringo as well, but it was Steve and a different bass player. So a lot changed, and the writing changed too, because on the first album I wrote most of it with Dave, and on the second album I wrote a good chunk of it with Steve. So there's going to be differences there for sure.
And I believe for the last song I picked here, we move up 2 albums, which is a song I picked from this one, Beautiful Noise.
So you need some time to figure it out, way down by those shadows of doubt. There's a hole that just won't up and leave. All the romance, the thrills and the spills is now a slow dance with the pills and the chills. Drop that weight on me. So break out that beautiful noise. Come out and blaze with the boys. It's only right now. It's all right now. Bring your distorted toys. In one way or another, bring that beautiful noise. It's hard to think with a head full of bees. It's hard to stand with those jelly knees. Can't answer the phone, can't answer the door. And all the running with the ads and the fads, it's not so stunning if it drives you mad. This modern age can be a pricey whore. So break out that beautiful noise. Come out and blaze with the boys. It's only right now. It's all right now. Bring your distorted toys. Then one way or another, brother, bring that beautiful noise. And when it comes to spite you, dance with the boys. It's only right now. You're not alone now. We're all distorted toys. In one way or another, brother, bring that beautiful noise.
I really like that song as well.
Okay, well that's funny you should say that, because right now we're navigating a 2 bass player situation because my brother Adam, who has been recording with us, but he lives far away and he can only come up as often as not that often. So he does some recording for us, and but in the last little bit we added a new fellow from Vancouver here named Tony. And Tony used to play with Adrian, our drummer, in a band a while ago, and we did shows with them. Like, this is going back like 15 plus years. So I kind of knew him a little bit, but I had no idea just how damn good he was until he came out and I think he came to his first rehearsal. And usually when you get guys to come out and play with you, you give them like 4 or 5 songs, and you say, if you just, you hope they can do their best to muddle their way through. He'd learned like 20 frickin' songs, and he'd learned them note for note from all different albums, like all these different bass players and all these, and it was just mind-boggling. I'd never seen anything like it. So, I mean, he's only played with us for a few months, and we've been focusing on new stuff, but he already knows like 30 songs of ours. It's just,
That's dedication.
That's awesome. And he's a super guy, and he's a great player. So between the two of them, we have this like unbelievable sort of bass thing going. And the ongoing joke with Star Collector is always that we're always between bass players, because we've had 19 different people man the bass at some point.
So Bass Collector is the real name.
Bass Collector is the real name. That's right. So anyway, so Tony, the reason I brought up Tony is because the other day he was working on the song on that album just before Beautiful Noise. He was working on it, a song called Play a New Song. And he was just going over it. And I guess he didn't, once he got to the end, he let it play, let the album play. And he immediately sent me a message and said, holy crap, I haven't heard this song before. We should really do it. I love this song. I said, oh, which one? He said, Beautiful Noise. And one of my other brothers, Paul, has always said that's one of his favorites too. It's just one of those ones that I guess we never played live too much. And it's a bit older now, so when we go to play songs off that album, there's 2 or 3 that we tend to play more often, but that's a song too, and I'm not again surprised that this one resonates with you, because it's actually a song about mental health. And I wrote it as a support for a close friend of mine who's a musician who was going through a rough time back then, and it was sort of a song of encouragement and support for him. So
yeah, it definitely called to me. There was something about that one as well. And then we'll do what we do, like we try to do for everybody on the show. We do the interview, and then we pick those songs, and we do a nice little like hour section just for you on the show here on Unlikely Places. So there'll be a nice little Vic Wayne Star Collector section here in the second half of the show. Or what we do is it's the second half when I'm building the show, and then we mix it in with the first half, so it's like blended. And then not one. I feel like when I listen to radio shows, if there's like just one section of all the same stuff, I kind of seem, even if it's good and even if I like it, I don't seem as excited. But when I mix things up, it's just from personal taste.
You're going to break it up amongst the show. You're going to play like
so
part of it, and then
if you
check
out on our website here, and not trying to promote other things, but if you check check out Lady Flowers' interview we did from Big Stir Records, or even Joey Mullen. No, Joey Mullen was one thing. If you check out Lady Flowers, his thing, we like put it before the songs, like little clips. And for the one that's coming up that you guys are Song of the Week for the Pretty Things, John and Wally, I decided to do 5-minute like full on clips from the interview, so it's a little different, but it's whatever works. But I mixed the songs into the first hour, so it's not just all, first hour is the regular show, second hour is just Pretty Things. I'd rather mix everything up, because I feel like if it was just all one thing, somebody could just tune out and listen to them on their own. I always feel like if it's a mix, there's a little bit of surprises in there too, and I like playing new artists as well. And my charts are funky.
All good.
My charts are fun.
Yeah.
This is all, we're finishing up here. So with how we do the charts, it's hilarious for me is I use a randomizer, because I don't get to see my numbers, like what's getting viewed the most and everything. And in all honesty, I pick a song of the week. So song of the week is always number one. And I like throwing a randomizer so there's no bias. Because if I was real, I'd just be putting my own shit on there, but I don't. I refuse to put any of my own songs on the charts. I will chart if, like, for example, it's one of our Robo Jack artists, because it's a different person.
Yeah.
But if it's my trade-off is then I don't chart myself ever. Because I want others. It's an empty chart. If I got number one all the time, there's no feeling to getting a number one. I put myself at number one. There's no feeling.
I think people would be a little bit sort
that
of
too. Yeah.
So
questioning like what happened there. It was funny that you said, nudge nudge, and you're like, hey, song of the week ? And I'm like, it's already planned. I already picked the song before you said it, which was originally Slow Fade. So it was kind of funny that it just switched, but it was just some songs they call to you and it's like that's it.
Oh well, that's like I said. I love both those songs, and
perfect.
And I got
I love finding the artists that like hate their songs, and they're like, "Why'd you pick that one? I hate that song." It's like, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't have anything that we've released that I hate. If it did, we would never have released it. I mean, there's some songs I prefer to others. Like, I mentioned that one show that this other guy did a while back where, on the demo model album, he picked the song. Like I said, it would have been my 12th of 12, but whatever. Like, I still like it enough to release it, and that's I think
that's important too. Yeah.
Like, it happens from experience. You and I were talking a minute ago about the way that people can work together as musicians. It comes from experience. When it comes to writing songs, you learn to write better songs by doing it more, by experience. And it's the same thing with making records that I found, at least in my own, for us. This is just for us. I can't speak for other people. But over the years, having made a lot of records and done probably as many unreleased albums as released albums, I have tons of demos that were recorded that never made it out. Over years of doing that over and over again, you start to be able to recognize the stuff that's not up to scratch a lot quicker. When you're young, you think everything that comes out of your ass is a gold nugget. As you write more and more, and as you make records more and more, you start to go, I don't know, I don't think that song's quite cutting it. Let's finish recording it, but leave it off the album. And so anything that makes one of our albums, I kind of think it deserves to be heard at some point. But if you ask me, between Slow Fade and this other song, 10 times out of 10 I'm going to say play Slow Fade, because to me, like, Slow Fade is
I understand that.
But that's the great thing about music. It's like everyone's got their own slant on it, and I'm thrilled with the choices you made, and I'm flattered that you want to play them on your show. So thanks.
And thank you for coming on. I mean, it's kind of it's funny how the universe works in a weird way too. It's like I needed to hear somebody saying like, look, I've been through some shit too. Like, life is life, and just hearing from your songwriting, I'm immensely inspired to just keep going, because life is a very rough game. It's not, as I'm getting older, I'm learning, but it's not easy.
Jeremy, this is something I've learned for sure, is anybody that tells you they haven't got their own shit somewhere in their life or their family is lying.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something. Nobody's life is
No,
sailed by
you'd be a
without
robot. You're not
it
doing
doesn't exist.
anything.
So if someone tells you that, they're probably full of shit. So,
Yeah. No,
so
I
just,
agree with that, definitely.
So I'm actually really I'll be really honest with you. I'm really impressed, and I didn't know you were as young as you are, but I'm hugely impressed with your ability to share your journey with people outwardly, because most people that go through some of the stuff that you're going through don't want to share it. And
it's a rough thing.
By sharing it, you're
Yeah.
doing what's necessary to be able to get through it, because people that bottle stuff up, it's not working, man.
And I have people that I know that tell me to stop. Like, tell me to stop sharing, because what it is I think what it is they're confronting their demons. They see, oh, this but that's why, like, I have my select group of family. I'm really happy that you stayed in the family chat. I understand why people left. I told them immediately when I made the chat, like, this is dangerous to have all these folks into one chat. I'm expecting everybody to leave. But I said, right at the beginning, everybody's free to come in or come out. If somebody wants to come back in, I mean, it was cool to see, like, Terry Draper in group. Terry Draper left group. But it was cool to see the guy from Clat 2 just pop in and out,
yeah, I mean, I don't respond to too much of it because I got a lot going on, but I do keep it up there. But I'm actually even talking about outside of the group, just that you're willing to share your journey, because that's how other people. It's the whole destigmatization.
That's what I was going to say. That there's such a
discussed, and people don't like to talk about it because it makes them uncomfortable.
And the people that don't understand it fear it, and fear becomes hate.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, it just becomes squirmy.
Yeah.
So even though we didn't play this song, this is something that if you want to explore that theme a little further, just off the air, our song "Rip It Off" is exactly about what we're talking about.
Okay. Right, I will re-listen to that album again now with a whole different perspective. That's another thing too. Not knowing the song stories and not knowing is such a cool feeling. But I'm one of those, like, I dig deeper and then I re-listen because I'm like, now I get a whole different perspective. It's like when David Bowie released Black Star. I was like, what the hell is this? And then he died, and I was like, yo, this is gold. It was like, this is such an insane album because he knew he was dying and nobody knew. It was like, oh my, I love Bowie to death. And it was just like, oh, this is insane. At first I did not like Black Star, but then it changed because it was another rethinking, the re-story. It wasn't a Ziggy Stardust album. It was a David Jones life album. It was David Bowie being himself.
I want to thank Vic for coming on.